The old map is spread across a wooden table. It is wrinkled and stained with tea. Its surface shows the winding borders of Myanmar. China, Thailand, Laos. A finger traces a faint red line near the town of Myawaddy, on the border with Thailand. This is a place of heavy traffic. Trucks, people, goods. Myanmar's geography is defined by a great horseshoe of mountains. This massive natural barrier wraps around the central plains of the country. To the west, the Arakan Mountains, Rakina Yoma, rise steeply. These mountains are not just geographic features. They are the homelands of Myanmar's many ethnic nationalities. They have shaped cultures, economies, conflicts for centuries. To understand the conflicts that define Myanmar's borderlands today, we must first understand the map itself. The clean, sharp lines that delineate the country on a modern globe are a recent invention, an illusion of permanence drawn over a far more complex and contested history. These borders are not ancient, nor are they a natural reflection of the land or its peoples. They are a direct and enduring product of British colonial rule, a political architecture imposed upon a region that had, for centuries, operated on entirely different principles. Before the British arrived in the 19th century, the area we now call Myanmar was a fluid patchwork of kingdoms, principalities, and autonomous territories. At its center was the powerful Bamar Kingdom, ruled by the Konbaung dynasty. Its authority was strongest in the fertile Irrawaddy River Valley. But beyond this heartland, in the rugged highlands and remote frontiers, lived a vast array of distinct ethnic groups: the Shan, the Kachin, the Chin, the Karen, and many others. These groups had their own leaders, their own social structures, and their own traditions. Their relationship with the Bamar throne was often one of loose allegiance or tribute, a far cry from the centralized control of a modern nation-state. Power ebbed and flowed, and borders were porous zones of interaction, not rigid lines of separation. This complex reality was shattered by the arrival of the British Empire. Driven by commercial interests and strategic rivalry with the French, the British East India Company launched a series of 3 devastating Anglo-Burmese wars, beginning in 1824. Over the next 6 decades, British forces systematically dismantled the Konbaung Kingdom. With the final war in 1885, the capital of Mandalay fell, the monarchy was abolished, and the last king, Thibaw Min, was sent into exile. The conquest was complete. For the first time, the Bamar heartland and the diverse ethnic hill regions were forcibly consolidated under a single foreign power, administered as a province of British India. The British implemented a policy of divide and rule that would have catastrophic long-term consequences. They governed the central plains of ministerial Burma directly, while administering the ethnic homelands, designated as the frontier areas, indirectly through traditional local leaders. This system institutionalized the separation between the Bamar majority and the ethnic minorities, preventing the development of a shared national identity. The British also recruited heavily from ethnic minority groups like the Karen, Kachin, and Chin to staff the colonial army and police, creating another layer of resentment and mistrust that would fester for generations. As the Second World War ended and the tide of colonialism receded across Asia, the question of Burma's future became urgent. Would it become a single, independent nation, or would it fracture along the lines drawn by the British? The architect of Burma's independence, General Aung San, father of the future leader Aung San Suu Kyi, recognized this danger. He knew that a unified, peaceful nation was impossible without the willing consent of the ethnic nationalities. To bridge the deep divides, he traveled to the highlands to negotiate directly with their leaders. This historic effort culminated in a meeting in the town of Panglong in Shan State in February 1947. The result of the meeting was the Panglong Agreement. It was a landmark compromise. In exchange for joining the new Union of Burma, leaders of the Shan, Kachin, and Chin peoples were guaranteed full autonomy in internal administration. The agreement also included principles of equality, democratic rights, and crucially, the right of secession from the Union after 10 years. It was a promise of a federal state, a partnership among equals, not a country dominated by the Bamar majority. For a brief, hopeful moment, it seemed a new foundation of mutual trust had been laid. But this fragile hope was extinguished just 5 months later. On July 19, 1947, Aung San and 6 of his cabinet ministers were assassinated by a political rival. The nation's primary unifying figure was gone, and with him, the spirit of Panglong. The governments that followed independence progressively abandoned the federal promises. Power was centralized, Bamar culture and language were promoted as superior, and the autonomy guaranteed to the ethnic states was systematically eroded. The trust that had been so carefully built at Panglong was broken. Feeling betrayed, many ethnic groups took up arms to defend the rights they had been promised. The colonial scars, left unhealed, erupted into open wounds, plunging the newly independent nation into a state of civil war that, in many ways, has never ended. The most powerful actor in Myanmar is the national military known as the Tatmadaw. In the borderlands, the Tatmadaw's presence is felt everywhere. It maintains a vast network of army bases. In practice, this meant burning villages, forcing civilians to move, committing widespread human rights abuses. More than 20 significant EAOs operate in Myanmar's borderlands. Some of the most powerful include United Wa State Army. In those zones, they run schools teaching in local languages. They operate hospitals and clinics. They administer their own justice systems. The military coup of February 1st, 2021, changed the landscape of power in Myanmar completely. In the weeks and months following the coup, the Tatmadaw responded to peaceful mass protests with lethal force, killing hundreds of unarmed civilians. A new armed resistance movement emerged, known as the People's Defense Forces, or PDFs. They provided basic training in guerrilla warfare, supplied them with weapons. In the border towns, life revolves around the market. These are not quiet, orderly places. They are a chaotic, vibrant explosion of sound. You can see Shan women in their distinctive turbans selling vegetables next to Chinese traders negotiating deals on their phones. The currency is just as mixed: Thai baht, Chinese yuan, Myanmar kyat. Away from the bustling towns, life in the borderlands is tied to the soil. For generations, families have been farming the same small plots of land, carved into the hillsides. But farming in a conflict zone is a constant gamble. A farmer planting his fields does not know if he will be able to harvest them. A sudden outbreak of fighting can force an entire village to flee, leaving their crops to rot. Travel in Myanmar's borderlands is a journey through a web of checkpoints. On any major road, you will encounter them. On many small dirt tracks, you will encounter them. These checkpoints are not just about security, they are about money. Every truck that passes through is expected to pay. Every bus that passes through is expected to pay. For hundreds of thousands of people in Myanmar's borderlands, home is not a village, but a temporary camp. They have been forced to flee their homes by fighting, by the fear of what might happen next. The camps are often overcrowded and unsanitary. Food is scarce. Clean water is a constant struggle. Where legal trade is blocked by war and state restrictions, illegal trade thrives. These illicit flows are not marginal. The main commodities are natural resources from ethnic states. High-value timber is one. Another big commodity, jade. Illegally logged and smuggled across borders, mainly to China. Myanmar is one of the world's largest producers of illegal drugs. It has been replaced by synthetic drugs. They churn out billions of methamphetamine tablets, yaba, especially the United Wa State Army. They provide security for labs and take a share of the profits. Where war, poverty, and lawlessness collide, human beings become a commodity. They are tricked with false promises of a good job who are then sold into forced labor. Another rapidly growing and sinister industry is the proliferation of online scam centers. Once the victims arrive, their passports are taken, and they are forced to work 12-hour shifts running sophisticated online scams. The most visible, and perhaps most devastating human cost of the decades-long conflict in Myanmar's borderlands is the constant, desperate flow of people fleeing for their lives. This is not a single event, but a relentless tide of displacement, a story written in countless journeys undertaken in darkness and fear. Each family wading through a river, each child clutching a parent's hand, represents a world turned upside down, a home abandoned, a future thrown into uncertainty. They carry not just their meager belongings in plastic bags, but the heavy burden of trauma and the fragile hope of finding sanctuary across a border they may never have intended to cross. For decades, Myanmar has been a source of one of the world's most protracted refugee crises. Successive waves of violence, persecution, and economic collapse have pushed its people outwards, a centrifugal force of instability radiating across Southeast and South Asia. People from nearly all of the country's ethnic groups have been forced to seek safety in neighboring countries, creating a complex diaspora of dispossession. They cross into Thailand, Bangladesh, India, and China, each border presenting its own unique set of dangers and opportunities. These are not abstract numbers, but farmers, teachers, students, and artisans, driven from their ancestral lands by forces far beyond their control. The longest standing and most formalized of these refugee situations is in Thailand. Along the Thai-Myanmar border, a string of 9 camps has existed for over 3 decades, primarily housing ethnic Karen and Karenni refugees who fled the Tatmadao's brutal Four Cuts campaigns in the 1980s and 90s. For generations, these camps have evolved from emergency shelters into semi-permanent settlements with their own schools, clinics, and community organizations. Yet, life remains in a state of suspended animation. Residents are typically unable to leave the camps legally, work, or own land. They are entirely dependent on international aid, which has dwindled in recent years, leading to food ration cuts and a pervasive sense of anxiety about the future. For many young people born in the camps, Myanmar is a country they have never seen, and Thailand is a country that does not fully accept them, leaving them caught in a stateless limbo. Then, on February 1st, 2021, the fragile political landscape of Myanmar shattered. The military coup, deposing the democratically elected government, triggered a new and massive wave of displacement, fundamentally altering the nature of the crisis. The junta's subsequent crackdown on dissent and its widespread use of airstrikes, artillery, and scorched earth tactics against civilian targets unleashed a level of violence not seen in decades. This brutal campaign has forced more than 2 million people from their homes within Myanmar, creating a vast population of internally displaced persons, or IDPs. But it also sent hundreds of thousands more fleeing across international borders. This new exodus has flowed in different directions. To the west, tens of thousands of people, primarily from the Chin State and Sagaing region, have crossed into India. Many found a degree of safety in the state of Mizoram, where they share close ethnic and linguistic ties with the local population. The Mizo community, remembering their own history of struggle, responded with an outpouring of solidarity, providing food, shelter, and support. However, this welcome is informal. India is not a signatory to the UN Refugee Convention, and the central government in New Delhi views these arrivals as illegal migrants, creating a precarious legal situation for those seeking refuge. To the northeast, renewed and intensified fighting in Shan and Kachin states has pushed thousands more towards the border with China. Here, the reception is far more stringent. While Beijing seeks stability on its frontier and has at times allowed temporary shelters to be established on the Myanmar side of the border, its official policy is strict. Refugees who manage to cross are often detained and forcibly returned to the conflict zone, a practice known as refoulement, which violates international humanitarian law. For those fleeing the violence, The Chinese border represents a wall of last resort, a gamble where being caught often means being sent back into the very danger they fled. For those who do make it to a country that offers a path to asylum, the process is often a bureaucratic marathon. It involves registration, interviews, and long waits, all while navigating a new language and culture with limited resources. The goal for many is official refugee status, which provides legal protection and the potential for resettlement in a third country like the United States, Canada, or Australia. But resettlement slots are few, and the process can take years, even decades. The refugee exodus from Myanmar is therefore not just a story of flight, but a prolonged saga of waiting for safety, waiting for status, waiting for a chance to rebuild a life. It is a testament to the profound failure of a state to protect its own people, and a stark reminder of the enduring human will to survive against all odds. Every story has a beginning, a point of departure. For this one, it wasn't a grand declaration or a momentous event, but something far quieter, more intimate. This journey began with a simple map, stained with tea and traced by a finger. It was spread out on a table in a small, bustling tea shop, the air thick with the scent of Lafette so, the pickled tea leaf salad, and the low hum of a dozen conversations. Here, amidst the clatter of cups and the steam rising from kettles, the complex tapestry of a nation is woven and unwoven daily. The map itself is a relic, its paper softened by humidity, its folds worn thin from countless openings and closings. It tells a story not just of geography, but of history, of ambition, and of unintended consequences. Look closer at these lines. Drawn with the detached precision of a colonial administrator's pen, they slice across the landscape with an unnatural straightness. Those crisp lines, decided in distant rooms for reasons of imperial convenience, created a country, the Union of Burma, now Myanmar. But they failed to create a nation. They were superimposed onto a reality they did not reflect. A land of immense diversity, where identity was tied not to a political abstraction, but to the valley you were born in, the language you spoke, the spirits your ancestors worshipped. The map promised order, a modern state. The reality it created was a foundation of discord. These lines of ink became lines in the sand, in the soil, in the very fabric of life. They sliced through ancient communities, separating families, dividing ancestral lands, and turning neighbors into foreigners overnight. A single village could find itself in two different countries, subject to two different sets of laws, two different armies. A farmer's fields might lie on one side of the line, his home on the other. The path to the market, walked for generations, now required a passport, a bribe, a risk. This cartographic violence, though bloodless on paper, has been bleeding into the real world for more than 70 years. To understand this story, you cannot just look at the map. You must look at the people whose lives are defined by it. We met farmers like Saw Ehatu, a composite of the many we spoke to. His hands know the soil, the rhythm of the monsoon, the weight of a full basket of rice. His identity is Karen, rooted in these hills for centuries, long before any map declared them part of Burma. For him, the border is not an abstract concept. It is a constant presence determining where he can plant, where he can sell, and whether his children will sleep safely at night. We met market traders like Nang Mui, a name representing the resilient women who are the lifeblood of the border economy. She navigates a world of multiple currencies, Thai baht, Myanmar kyat, Chinese yuan, and shifting regulations. Her stall is a microcosm of the border itself, a place of exchange, of adaptation, of survival. She is a Shan woman, but her customers are Karen, Bamar, Chinese, Thai. Here, commerce erodes the hard edges of the political map, creating its own fluid geography of trade and interdependence. We listened to displaced mothers, their faces canvases of worry and exhaustion. They spoke not of politics, but of survival, of fleeing their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the children in their arms, of the sound of artillery fire that has become the soundtrack to their lives. Their stories are a testament to the human cost of a conflict that turns homes into front lines and forces families to seek refuge in the unforgiving jungle or crowded, under-resourced camps. And we listen to the young fighters of the People's Defense Forces, the PDF, students, poets, and factory workers who have traded their books and tools for scavenged rifles. They are the children and grandchildren of the 1988 generation, now fighting the same military their parents rose up against. They speak of democracy and freedom, a new federal vision for the country. But their youth is being spent in the malaria-infested jungles, learning the brutal calculus of guerrilla warfare. Their struggle is the latest chapter in a long and bitter clash. A clash between the center, the Bamar-dominated heartland of the Irrawaddy Basin, with its vision of a strong, centralized state, and the periphery, the vast mountainous borderlands, home to dozens of ethnic nationalities, each with its own history, language, and aspirations for self-determination. It is a fundamental conflict between a military, the Tatmadaw, that has for decades demanded unity through force, viewing ethnic diversity as a threat to national integrity and its own power, and the ethnic nationalities who have consistently demanded equality through federalism, a system that would recognize their rights and grant them genuine autonomy over their own lands and lives. This is the story of that map and the people trying to redraw it, not with ink, but with struggle, with sacrifice, and with an unyielding hope for a different future. The 2021 military coup did not start a new war in Myanmar. It poured gasoline on a fire already burning. It shattered a decade of fragile political reforms. The Bamar majority felt the military terror ethnic nationalities had long known. This shared suffering created an unprecedented sense of national unity. The borderlands are now the heart of the nationwide resistance. Understanding a situation as complex and fluid as Myanmar's borderlands, it is an ongoing process. This essay gave a map and a framework. Seek out independent journalists. BBC, Reuters, Frontier, Myanmar. The struggle for the borderlands, and Myanmar, is for dignity, freedom, and peace. By continuing to watch, to learn, and to listen, we refuse to let their story unfold in the darkness of a forbidden frontier.